This is the Lance Wallnau Show, bringing you information you don't get in other places. For instance, I have been to Korea several times, and I'm going to be going back there again in January, I believe. Hence, I am distressed to see on the streets the same kind of anarchy, the same kind of stupidity and mob socialist, Marxist, rebellious foolishness as I've seen happen in America with the destruction of our cities. And it's happening right now in South Korea. And we don't get it. It's like, oh, they're doing martial law in South Korea. Boom, pip up, another story. You don't understand. This is the 7th most prosperous nation in the world at one point in time. Climbed up from the bottom of the ladder because of democracy and Christianity. They were a test case in Asia of the virtues of Western civilization if a nation would embrace the Bible and then put in laws that were fair. Well, anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is you're looking at an experiment. No one's analyzing it. Not the war room. Nobody's talking because they're missing the intellectual story that's right in front of them. What happens to a society like America that loses its spiritual foundation? You begin to lose your mind. But you know what? It's Christmas. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to say this. I got Chelsea over here. Chelsea's sitting in there at Mercedes' seat. Mercedes in the back on a call right now. Chelsea, when I was talking about some of the stress, there's plenty of things to be happy about, but I'm also talking about the level 10 matrix because I'm saying there's stuff I wish I could say on the air, but I don't want to get in trouble with, because we're getting results. We're watching almost like miraculous results. And I said, I don't know what to tell people. It's legit that I won't get, in trouble for. And then you said to me what? You said that you yourself got some benefit. What was it?
Yes. So Level 10 Matrix is a program that we offer. It's a simple, safe, effective, regenerative therapy. And I've been really fortunate as someone who works for you. I've been blessed with these stem cells. I've gotten them on my own, and they've actually really changed my life. So Lance, I've been with Lance a long time. And Lance, I don't know if you remember, I used to cough and hack and have really bad allergies all the time. Remember that?
Yes.
You were always asking me if I was dying.
Precisely. My own sympathetic way.
Yeah, it was awful. And so and then I found out in my late 20s, it's because I had celiac disease, lactose intolerance, allergic to corn, allergic to eggs, literally allergic to just food, pretty much anything you eat out. And I was constantly hacking and coughing and allergies and nasal drip. It was very uncomfortable, very inflamed all the time. It basically simulated an autoimmune disease. And when we started working with Level 10 Matrix and I started receiving the therapy, I started noticing that these symptoms were going away. They were disappearing. I wasn't coughing as much, hacking as much. And I think we're 3 years in, and I just had lunch and it had dairy on it. It definitely had corn in it. And I'm not coughing and hacking. I don't feel like I'm dying. Nobody asked me if I'm dying today. I'm alive. I'm full of life now. And
it's true. And then when you told me you're tracing the different things you're doing, like, you've got me changing supplements and diet, but this is a big one.
Yeah, this is the biggest thing I've noticed that has absolutely changed my life. I take all the products that we talk about on this show.
Yeah, and so this is the lab. This is the Lance Lab. We all take the products. Go to level10matrix.com. If you're watching on Instagram, on Instagram or on Facebook, you can just put the word matrix down. And this particular therapy has results that literally I've seen them as various as joints that recover, to cognitive fog that lifts. There's even a Parkinson's situation recently that I'm watching the progress of. It's amazing. The body knows how to heal itself if you work with God's design. Call 1-800-361-2270 or go to level10matrix.com. And somebody's going to talk to you and tell you exactly what you need to know and how you can go about starting. What a great Christmas gift. What a tremendous gift to give someone you love. The gift of health, the gift of living pain-free, the gift of clarity. Level10matrix.com. Let's get into today's show. I want to talk about something which isn't playing in America. I have a friend of mine from the Middle East, Lee Joe, who in Dubai used to always joke with me and say, Lance, the Middle East is called the middle, and then the Far East is called the far. Do you know why? Because history, biblical history, Genesis to Revelation, starts in the Middle East, it ends in the Middle East. It's the Middle East and not the United States that is the center of history. Well, he was saying it kind of tongue-in-cheek because he wanted to come to the United States and was always trying to get me from the United States to bring my influence over there. But the point is, the United States can be a narcissistic country. Why? Because we are, at the end of history, the largest, strongest, most militarily, economically powerful Gentile nation. And Jesus said there was a time for the Gentile nations, and then an end of the Gentile nations, and the pivot would move back to history and the Middle East. And then we have our vast end time. You talk about conspiracy theories. Brother, the secular world knows nothing about that. Wait till they run into our prophetic end time apocalyptic Pentecostal community. Oh, baby, we've got an entire anthology library in history ready for that. By the way, Hal Lindsey just passed away, 98 years old or something. I don't know if you guys remember him. He's the guy that wrote the book, The Late Great Planet Earth, back in the 70s, I guess it was, and it became a bestseller. But it was the first time a modern, teacher took the symbolism of the book of Revelation and applied it to modern, technology and said, the description that John has here of these flying scorpions really is, and they would show you a helicopter called the Scorpion and how fire comes out of its mouth and how they literally fire missiles. And so he was the first person that modernized the text to interpret the symbolism in a relevant way to current history. And it just hit a chord. Put your hand up if you remember that. I'm talking to my over 50 crowd, Late Great Planet Earth. And, he just passed away, 98 years old. So there's a whole generation there. And now we come up to what I want to say is really the scenario of the end of days. And I don't want you to lose this, because God is, in a sense, he is causing for the United States, he's causing a pause in which the prayers that were prayed. Now, all you guys that don't follow this, I'm doing this show for Real America's Voice today. And so I want you to hear, they're not accustomed to this kind of thinking. I want you to stay with me now. In the Bible, it says that prayers are like put in a bowl. And that bowl takes all that prayer. And then at a certain point in time, in the crescendo of timing, God tips over the bowls of heaven. And out upon the earth comes the answered prayer. Well, there was a lot of prayer going up in 2020 when there was a concern that the election was being interfered with. Certainly, $400 million of Zuckerberg's money setting up ballot box outposts and then ballots being dropped off, and the chain of custody question as to, well, how do you know this is actually a vote with a source behind it versus a printing press? And then, when you lose as Trump lost and yet has a popular move like he's got now, his people were really there was a tremendous sense that this is the end. But what I'm trying to tell you is, it's not the end if God himself is saying, I know timing. I'm going to let it look like the end. I'm going to let them, with 2 impeachments, 2 assassination attempts, 4 different court proceedings in 4 different jurisdictions at a federal, local, national level, threaten him with bankruptcy, take a bunch of money from him, drag his name through the mud, accuse him of all kinds of stuff. And then the Lord turns it around. If you just see the arc of history, then the bowls that have been not just from 2020, but from 2020 all the way to 2024, tipped over. And God says, now is the timing. Reminds me of the scene in the movie Gladiator where Maximus is in the arena, and as the chariot is rolling towards him in the recreation of the fall of Carthage, and they're about to wipe out these 13 North African gladiators that are just linked together by sheer unity with their little trembling shields locked and overlapped. As the chariot comes rolling down, Maximus says, hold, 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 and then as one. And then when he says as one, boom, they lean into the shields and boom, repulse the attack. God knows when you're holding, and then he knows when to give the command as one. And where we are now is, and I'm very gratified by this realization, where we are now in history is America is experiencing something which we hardly expected. It's as though God has, in the valley that Joshua was in, is holding the sun still, the moon still, and giving time. Time for what? Well, that's why Trump's picks are so destabilizing to the person who is on the outside looking in, but so encouraging to those of us on the inside looking out. He is putting into position individuals who have an intricate personal history with the abuse of the governmental institutions against them. In one way or another, each of them is schooled and passionate about taking down the giant that is in their mountain. And with Trump behind them, they can take, for instance, the diversity, equity, inclusion, weird stuff that has gotten into the military, where the government is no longer preparing men for combat, but preparing them for trans surgery or trying to figure out how to accommodate pregnancy leave for a fighter pilot. The new priority is you're up against killers in China. You're up against powerful adversaries that are disciplined, and they have not let woke weaken their masculine agenda. And so now you've got under siege candidates for these seats, but Pam Bondi will be confirmed. Kash Patel will be confirmed. He wrote the book Government Gangsters. He actually has a best-selling book telling you where all the bodies and schemes are and how they work together. And they know that he knows, and he's basically saying, I know how you play the game, so I know how to come at you. And they're doing everything in their power to try to unseat these individuals. What I'm trying to tell you is the sun and the moon is being held still because the depth of the degradation, the degrading, the decay that is in the institutions, the mountains. Oh, why did I teach on these mountains for years? Because I was prophetically right. I was describing a simplified 30,000-foot image of what the end of the age would be like as we have to deal with media as a mountain of distortion, a mountain of propaganda, a mountain of lies. And I've said from the beginning, the media is like the false prophets, the professors, 90% of which are schooled in Marxism and dipped in a kind of deep, powerful, perverse cynicism regarding those values and virtues of conservative Christianity that shaped the nation and built a bedrock that gives it its fundamental final stability. Yeah, the academic community. I was listening to James Davison Hunter, the learned scholar in Virginia, who I happen to have great admiration for. And this award-winning, recognized scholar who wrote the book Culture Wars and the various other books after that regarding the predicting and forecasting how America is breaking apart because of two alternative conceptions of the source of ultimate truth. One side saying the Word of God, a revelation from outside yourself. The Jordan Peterson world is they're saying there's a transcendent truth that is bigger than man and his predilections or his barbaric hedonistic impulses in any one day. There is a truth that judges man rather than man concocting his own truth. On the other side, you have people that say, well, there's a truth, but it's not transcendent, it's not God. It's in the reason of man and the faculties of man to reason. And so man reasons his way into becoming a woman. Woman reasons her way into becoming a man. And the two of them look crazy to the people over here that are standing on the bedrock of another source of revelation that says, and in the beginning, God made them uniquely, and he called them separately. And the two become one when they join, but they aren't confused genders when they start. Two different sources of truth. Anyway, James Hunter, who has been one of my heroes for so many years, I realize that he doesn't like Trump. He doesn't like the conservative movement. And I realize he's steeped in the environment of academia. The fish can't separate himself from the water he swims in. They're anti-Trump there, and he says, well, he's attacking the institutions, and he's saying the FBI's corrupt, and he's saying the government's corrupt. How can you have confidence in democracy when someone keeps tearing it? Well, it is corrupt. And that's the point. The brilliant scholar is sympathetic with the narrative of the Washington Post and the New York Times and CNN and the Academy and his peer group. And he holds certain ground that none of them are in, so you got to give him credit for holding the parcel of land he does as a Christian. But I realized when I read his most recent interview, I thought, amazing that even he cannot penetrate out of the fog of his own environment. Bad company will corrupt good people. And if you're around people that have a strong intellectual bias, I want you to know something. The people you hang with do influence you. You're either influencing them or you're influencing you. They're either leading you towards a greater discernment of truth, and iron sharpening iron, or they're making you duller with every exchange. Why am I saying all that? Well, I'm saying all that because you're living at this unique moment in history when the world is shifting and God is giving a reprieve. And when we come back, I'm going to talk to you about the danger of missing the moment. South Korea is potentially going to collapse right now because the left wing hasn't been resisted. They have no MAGA movement. They have no strong Christians engaged in government. Half the country claims to be born again, and they're totally out to lunch because they listened to the West, and we did not prepare them for the collapse of their own country. So when we come back, we'll talk about the lesson of history. We'll be right back. It's possible. I'm hearing from some economists, gold hitting up to $3,000 an ounce. You know what? The instability of the American election. I mean, I'll be honest with you. If Trump is in, the market's going to take a sigh of relief. If Trump isn't in, it's going to be dollar free fall. It's going to be crazy time. You want to go to the place where your long-term stability is going to be garnered and protected. I've done this for a long time with you guys, for a year or two with Birch Gold. We're coming to an end of that cycle soon, and because I'm going to continue to offer it, but you need to move fast to get the 21-page report. If you don't understand why all nations are moving to gold and they're decoupling from the American unstable dollar, go to lancewallnau.com/gold, lancewallnau.com/gold. I do want you to be able to get these reports on what's happening with BRICS nations, the global economy, and I believe we're going to have a front row seat and we'll be as accurate as possible in predicting the trends. But I can tell you this, the silver is mine and the gold is mine. Comes from Haggai, a chapter of a prophet in the Old Testament who said, in the end of time, God is going to shake everything. And then he says, silver and gold is stable, basically because God has purposes. lancewallnau.com/gold. Talk to you later. And so, welcome back to the Lance Wallnau Show. We have every choice that Trump is making, for the most part, with the exception of the Treasury, every point, every person is there for the destabilizing. In the economics, Trump wants stability. He'll create his own instability, and we'll talk about that in a minute when he's threatening tariffs on everybody. But he wants to dismantle woke DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is 8 layers deep in the administration, from the executive offices all the way down to the subordinate office, to the secretarial offices, to the deputy offices, all the way down to their staff, to the subordinate faculty, or the academies. All government agencies have been under $1.2 trillion worth. Oh, I shouldn't say. Is it 1.2 trillion? Actually, you know what? Musk just put out go to my Twitter account there. Go to @LanceWallnau on X, @LanceWallnau on X, and I have my lead story here. We're going to skip over Donald Trump threatening the Middle East. Oh yeah, here we go. Go down to 2 hours ago, which would be for you guys a couple of days ago. Go to where the axe is. You'll see a big picture of an axe. Go there to my X account. If you're not on Twitter, on X, go there, because right now with Elon Musk in charge of it, it's the only place where you actually can have total unmanipulated access to information. I mean, you can get it on other things too, obviously, but not in terms of a platform. So when you go there, you guys are looking at the Colin Wright's article there. Colin Wright says, during the Biden-Harris administration, the proportion of funding that was allocated to diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts increased by, listen to this, 9,210% from 2021 to 2024. It went from being less than 0.29% or 0.5% to 27% of government expense. This is an ideology. Can you imagine if I, as a Christian, said, we will now spend $1.064 billion this year on training you with a biblical worldview to understand redemption, themes from the Bible on faith, righteousness, forgiving your enemies, self-control, a basic biblical worldview. People would freak out. This is a religion, people. The Marxist creed. It is a belief system, and it's based on a theory of the origin of the universe and the nature and relations of moral agents, and what is right and what is wrong, and what is good and what is bad. Religion defines what is right and what is wrong, and what is good and what is bad. Religion defines reality. You could debate what is ultimately right, what is ultimately wrong, what is ultimately good, what is ultimately evil. But it all comes back to that understanding that worldviews are rooted in something. And this DEI, Marxist worldview, is rooted in its own form of religious therapy for how do you remedy the evils of the earth? What is the origin of suffering? What is sin? And how does paradise and blessing come to humanity? Well, there you have it, DEI funding, which is why I said just put that axe there. I say send the axe because the axe needs to be laid to the root of the tree. Because if you go to the root, you can deal with the fruit. Now back to South Korea. On my watch as we speak, South Korea. Play that footage, by the way, while I'm talking. South Korea is having, this reminds me of progressive riots in the United States. We saw it was like a George Floyd spirit out there. Only once again, it's rebellion against the government, tearing down, this reminds me of, they're not as violent as we are. I think the Koreans are probably Asians they tend to, it looks to me like they're a little bit more orderly. But the political pressure is on because the South Korean president has declared martial law. Right away, it's like, martial law. Well, he's a lame duck president. I think they just had an election, and he got beat by and this is weird, it's a knockoff of the United States progressive, super progressive. It's like if Harris was president. That's what they're putting in office now. So what you've got is something interesting. I had to go to ChatGPT because I couldn't get, maybe I could get from Daily Wire, certainly not the BBC, information on this. The threat is that they've initiated 22. This is like Trump. Remember Trump when they tried to impeach him? The left has gotten a hold of the mechanisms of power, so they've initiated 22 impeachment proceedings against government officials just in the last 6 months. They got a dozen more that they're doing. What are they trying to do? Paralyze and dismantle the government. It's like a student takeover of the campus. It's like a student protest, is what I'm saying. And they're utilizing the youth and the campuses because they get dumb. They get taken over by Marxists, socialist professors like the United States, and they don't have a backbone, a mental framework with which to resist bad ideas. So they're now intimidating judges like they did with our Supreme Court, showing up at their houses, impeaching a number of prosecutors, paralyzing the executive branch by trying to impeach the ministers of the Interior, the chairman of Communications Commission, the chairman of the Board of Audit, the defense minister. And so they want to overthrow the system. Now, they don't need to do that because they got a lame duck president. They're just pent up in their will to power. This is so weird. This is what happens in a country when you don't have a MAGA movement, when you don't have a movement of conservatives and Christians who are institutionally and freedom of speech. They've got it, but they don't have the war room. They don't have the flashpoints. They don't have shows like this. They don't have a worldview for that. And the 50% of the country that's Christian is blah, 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 blah. They're not even involved with politics. The left has taken over the government. Now they're learning what a mistake that is. Both parties support progressive social policies, including the promotion of gender equality and LGBTQ rights, aligning with broader progressive values. So you don't have a distinction between the two. You don't have a movement within the conservative movement that's conserving anything. And guess what? If you're a conservative and you don't have a movement to conserve something, you can't just be a movement based on, you can't be a conservative based upon your tax theory. So that the Christians have departed from government involvement, and therefore CRT, DEI, LGBTQ has taken over both parties, and there's no opposition, so a conservative can't stand. They're going to go full tilt boogie towards North Korea, and they're infatuated in the campus level with the allure of the paradise of equal rights and communism. That's where they're heading. They want a more conciliatory approach with North Korea. So they want to get more into the environment. Well, that's interesting. I'm sure North Korea is worried about the environment. Have you thought about what happens to the environment when nuclear bombs go off? How it sets back your carbon emission plan? Allegations of pro-North Korean sympathies. The president, Yoon Suk-yeol, has accused the opposition party of harboring pro-North Korean sentiments and engaging in anti-state activities. Well, what are they after this president for? His wife bought an expensive pocketbook. You talk about trying to find crimes. That's right. She is under investigation for spending. And they wanted to create a committee, a special committee, that would be observing the wife because of her spending habits. Well, it sounds to me. Let me read you what we got here. This president here has had a real dive in popularity. He was mired in several political influence and corruption scandals, including one involving the First Lady accepting a Dior bag, and another around stock manipulation. He was forced to issue an apology on national television and say he was setting up an office to oversee the First Lady's spending and duties to make sure she doesn't receive any more pocketbooks. The opposition proposed slashing budgets for his government while he's in office and then reinstating them when they're in power. It's a country out of control. Let me tell you what the problem is. The church there followed Hillsong. It followed our church growth gurus in the United States, followed our mega church model, which is focused on stay out of politics, focus on the kingdom, preach the gospel, worship Jesus, let your life speak as a witness, and expect things to change in government and economics and in media and in academia simply by adding numbers of people sitting in your church. Don't work that way, sweetheart. So South Korea copied America. And what's weird is South Korea was the 7th strongest economy in the world. And they came from being in the lowest 10 most poverty-stricken countries in the world. They became the 7th most powerful. You know why? After World War II, they had the Billy Graham Crusades. They had America really. They latched onto us as a force for setting up their parties, their constitution, and they had just enough Christianity, like up to 50% of the population, to be able to implement a moral order with laws like that. North Korea has to be run by a dictatorship. What I'm saying to you is, the world is crying out to us. What happens? Freedom doesn't automatically happen, and prosperity doesn't automatically happen. And America's virus, when it gets into these other countries, as it is in Europe right now with the European values that you've got, it's going to take strong leadership and a commitment to Judeo-Christian reality. We have a window. We have to occupy our own institutions, or that will be a chapter yet we'll get into again in America. And you'll go back and say, oh my God, I thought this was gone. No, the ark will move back. That's what Jesus taught. The house can be cleansed, but you got to occupy it. So my encouragement to you in this season is to read the newspaper with a Bible in one hand and understand the times you live in, because you're living in extraordinary times. And right now is the time of God's favor. And many of us are going to be getting involved with Korea, helping the church, helping the business, helping the political infrastructure to develop a backbone and an intelligent form of resisting the deterioration of a great nation. And I believe America's missionary work for Christians is going to include both harvest and reformation. We're going to have to learn how to do two tracks in America and in other countries if you want to preserve your freedom. God's given you the authority to do something about it. In the earth right now, you can win and not lose. All right, we're going to have to stop right here. I can't believe we went over 1 minute and 28 seconds over time. So I got to stop, and we'll be back again tomorrow, because I haven't got into half the stories I got to cover. Bye-bye.
Because of your overwhelming support, our $14.88 MyPillow has been one of the biggest sales in MyPillow history. I couldn't think of a better way to say thank you than to extend our wholesale pricing through Christmas. Get a classic standard MyPillow for only $14.88. Upgrade to a queen size, just $18.88. King size, only $1 more. Get my body pillows for only $29.88. And ready? Multi-use MyPillows, only $9.88. It's perfect time to stock up for Christmas gifts for everyone on your list. Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our wholesale pricing, including my classic standard MyPillows, only $14.88. But that's not all. I'm so confident you're going to love our classic MyPillows that I'm going to extend my 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2025. Plus, orders over $75 ship absolutely free.
Go to MyPillow.com and use promo code Lance to save big on all of Mike's best products. That's promo code Lance. Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.